right, good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to our second Lean Six Sigma report out. This morning, you will learn about several projects that are being worked on by your fellow coworkers. The City of Kerrville believes in empowering our staff members to improve processes by eliminating waste and variation. Our staff members are the greatest resource engine that we have, and therefore it is vital that we invest in them to achieve our goals as a city. So staff has gone through 80 hours of Lean Six Sigma training and have worked through many different challenges to be able to get to this point. Every project is a little bit different, and every project has different challenges it faces. The presentations themselves will be approximately about 5 to 7 minutes, okay? And within those 5-7 minutes, they'll go through and talk about their projects, and then we'll have either 3 to 5 minutes after their presentation to ask questions, so that we have approximately 10 minutes in total for the projects. So at this point in time, I'd like to introduce our first presenter, and our first presenter is going to be Donna. And Donna's project, I'm really proud of Donna because she fought me all the way, tooth and nail, about actually joining the Lean Six Sigma program. She's like, I don't want to do it. I think she threatened to throw me off the balcony at one point in time, but I was too heavy for her, so. But anyways, I'd like to welcome Donna up and to give her presentation. Thank you.
And he's telling you the truth. I really did not want to do this. I'm Donna Boyer, for those of you who don't know me. I am the Code Enforcement Officer here for the city. My Lean Six Sigma project is reducing my hours worked on my code enforcement cases. My summary worksheet helped me to describe the scope of my work for my project. My Pareto chart is a chart comparing other cities to Kerrville and the hours they spend on their cases. I compared 3 cities, Weatherford, Boerne, and Fredericksburg. And as you can tell, Weatherford is spending about 5.2 hours per case. They have 2 code enforcement officers. Boerne has 1 code enforcement officer, and she's spending about 3.8 hours per case. Fredericksburg has 1 code enforcement officer, and he is spending about 2.5 hours per case. I was very impressed with that. My summary report shows the number of cases that code enforcement does per month. I'm doing about 35.7 cases a month right now. Oops, let me go back. I'm spending about 4.7 hours per case. My trend analysis chart shows my month-to-month cases, and you can tell there's a big variation from month to month. Some months I have really high numbers, some months very low. Based on the data that we collected, this is an estimate of cost. With improvements, we estimate a soft cost savings of about $34,707. My problem statement: as a department, we are experiencing a problem with duplicity in the work, excess time in processing the cases. The area where this problem is occurring is code enforcement. The problem has existed for about 3 years. The current performance is 4.65 hours per case, and my expected performance time is 2.5 hours per case. The effect this problem is having is the processing time is way too long. This is costing us as much as $69,414 per year. Right now, well, this was my process step. And as you can tell, I have several steps from start to finish. That's from the time the calls come in, from me doing my inspections, my follow-up inspections, my letters, everything that I possibly could do for one case. This was my steps, quite a few. My fishbone diagram helped me to identify all the opportunities that could cause an issue in my process. My Y-X diagram allowed me to rank the opportunities to identify the potential root causes. My X tracker helped us to organize our efforts as we evaluate the opportunities to identify the root cause or causes in my process. This is just an example of me duplicating in my process. When a call comes in, I make a file. Then I create a share file, and then I create another file in GovQA. All 3 of those files have the exact same information. All my photos, all my notices, all of my certified letters, everything, all 3. Why? We've always done it that way. All the letters, all the blocks that are highlighted in yellow are all represent me duplicating in my steps. This is my spaghetti diagram. Don't you love my artwork down there? I see some eyebrows going up. No, my 3rd grader did not do that. I did that. It shows all of my steps in the office. I'm doing in-office steps only, and I'm doing about 369 steps just in office. When I was comparing cities, Fredericksburg really stuck out in my head. They have one person. He's doing about 800 cases a year. And I just kept going, why? Well, after visiting with him, I realized he has his office in his work truck. He has a computer, a printer, a GPS. Everything he could possibly need is right there in his truck. He even has his phone transferred from his office to his truck, so he's not even missing phone calls. Very impressed with that. When implementing my improvements, we were able to reduce my process steps by 20 steps. That's a lot. I'm really excited about this next slide. And it's not moving. The batteries died. You will be excited as soon as we can get this to work.
I don't know what happened.
I didn't touch anything. Oh, there we go. In the first slide, it's my truck before I received my equipment. The second photo shows you my printer. I have an iPad holder, an iPad, a portable desktop. Now my truck is set up with my office. I can now stay out in the field instead of going out doing inspections, then coming back and doing all my paperwork. I can stay out in the field. I received all of my equipment in the middle of March. So April I was really excited about because that's my first full month of having the equipment in my truck. And I am thrilled to say that I had 96 cases for the month of April. I had 45 reactive and 51 proactive. And then just this week alone, Monday and Tuesday, May 6th and 7th, I already have over 30 cases just for those 2 days. So I'm really thrilled about that. We are creating and implementing a code compliance procedure manual. I'll continue to work on that. Then my next steps will to continue validating improvements, conduct training, validate controls, finalize savings, and then my project will be closed. Thank you so much.
So our next presenter is Mary. One of the few things I've really enjoyed about working with Mary is that she asks a lot of questions. So every time we go in there, I think she has about 50 questions ready for me every time we sit down. But the good thing is that's an inquisitive mind. That's somebody that wants to learn, somebody that's interested in trying to figure out how we can make things better. And so I've really enjoyed my time working with Mary and trying to figure out how we can improve this project and process. So with that, I'll leave it up to Mary to describe the rest of her project.
Hi, I'm Mary, and I'm with the fire department. And my project is how to streamline the requisition process for fire. In fire, on a minimum, we input 20 to 30 requisitions per week because we input them for fire, for emergency management, for fire prevention, EMS, and EMS billing. Our summary report indicated that we had an average of 4.4 hours was our overall lead time for each requisition. With a maximum, we could have had 21.6 hours. But that, of course, depended on their workload and other projects and assignments that could be top priority. In our summary report, we discovered that our approximate cycle time was 9 minutes to process requisitions. Our project charter was, we as a department, we discovered that the requisition process was lengthy and inconsistent. The area where the problem is occurring, of course, in our fire department. The problem has existed, as far as we know, in the past several years. The baseline average was 4.43 minutes, and of course, our goal performance is to reduce overall lead time. The effect this problem could have on our department is missed payments, late payments, duplicate payments, and of course, additional journal entries. In hard dollars, we may not be spending in hard dollars or losing in hard dollars, but because we're careful to pay our invoices in a timely manner. However, in soft dollars, it saves us in soft dollars in time. When we were identifying our process steps and our times, we realized we had 18 process steps. The main thing I think is that we're getting invoices from several different locations. We're getting them from finance, of course, from accounting. We're getting them in the mail. We're getting them from vendors, and we could also get them from our BCs and our stations. In analyzing our times again, some areas of improvement we found to be our major ones was when we were receiving the invoice. As we were processing those, they were immediately going to our chiefs instead. That was one area of improvement. And our other one is IDing the accounts that they were go to first, because we have 5 different divisions. Of course, not only was it the accounts that we were looking at, but also the line items within those accounts. When we were analyzing our cycle times, of course, a lot of them look totally different. One can be 21 minutes, one can be 4 minutes, and they looked totally sporadic. But it was not so much doing the task, but finding the time to do the tasks. Sorry. In identifying our improvements, as a trial run now, we have added, I don't know if you can see it too well, but we've added a slip that hopefully if it works well and we find that so far it has been, we're going to create a stamp for it. And it might not only help us, but it could help in different departments if they so chose to. The invoice comes in now, and instead of it going to my chiefs for them to look at it and say, yes, it's okay to pay it, which is all they were just telling me, we have received the product or we haven't received the product, is it comes in, I keep it, I attach this to it, I go ahead and put what I believe to be the department, the division it should go to, and the line item it should go to. Once they look at it, they can either say, I don't know if you can see on the 3rd line of blocks, they can change it, revise it, and say, no, you know what, we don't want this to come out of fire, we want it to come out of EMS. That's where, that's who bought it, and that's where we want it to come out of, that's where we budgeted. And so, that's working really well. Now everything is held, it goes to them once they've initialed it. By the time I get it back to input everything into encode, we know where it's going. I don't have to wonder, oh my, where is it going? So now we can process them in encode quickly, and because my chiefs are consistently busy with so many projects, having this information beforehand has proved to be crucial. Not having for them, they don't have to open up the TCM every time they look at a requisition, because that's very time consuming. And for them, for fire, time is crucial. Our next steps is, of course, to be validated. We haven't validated the improvements, but we feel like it is already an improvement. And implementing our controls. We're continually looking to improve this process and how it can enable us to prepare for the next year's budget. Saving time is crucial to the fire department. Thank you.
Our next presenter is Bobby, and his project is to increase the inventory turns in golf. And so it's more of a manufacturing terminology that I kind of used. But the idea is, how do we increase sales within the golf course and turn over our inventories quicker and faster, so that I think the right terminology in finance is the velocity of money, right? Increasing that velocity of money. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a finance major, but I believe that's what it is. And so I've done many projects like this, especially in the manufacturing world. We're looking at improving and increasing our turns. And so this has been a very challenging project, because some of the data that we struggle to get a lot of information, a lot of data, but I think we're making progress now. I think we're able to figure it out. And Bobby's been wonderful in trying to help me get this information, asking a lot of questions, being very inquisitive, and providing all kinds of support for this project. So, Bobby.
Morning, Bobby Morris, assistant golf professional at Shriner Golf Course. As Guillermo said, initially, we were trying to find a way that we could better turn over our inventory at the golf course. We've got a very large amount of inventory that we've carried for a number of years, and we were trying to find ways through past data, past reports to find better ways to sell through the merchandise, sell through the inventory, and not have quite as much older inventory on hand. This first chart here kind of gives an overview of some of our inventory, some of our merchandise items. You know, from grips to balls to hats, tees, things like that. It just kind of gives a general overview of what we do have and what we offer and what we do carry. This right here, the amount of inventory that we carry, even though we sell through merchandise on a daily basis, our golf balls, our tees, our headwear, things that we sell regularly every single day, the amount of inventory that we have from golf clubs, things like that, that don't sell on a regular basis, there could be up to a year's time that we might have a bag that doesn't sell or a club that doesn't sell. It doesn't mean that we're not selling inventory. It just means that we do have some of, you know, whether it's newer equipment, whether it's older equipment, that's not selling for almost up to a year's time in some cases. This right here is basically it just gives a sample of a few months of how the inventory's been turned over. It's a pretty small number right now. That takes into account some of our older inventory. Our problem statement that we had talked about already, with the amount of inventory that we have, that we've been carrying for a number of years, we are selling through that at less than 50%. We're selling less than 50% of our inventory in a year's time. So we've got an amount of inventory that we need to make some adjustments on or find better processes to sell through some of that merchandise or inventory. This is a graph here that just gives a general idea of the amount of sales that we have for a certain number of items that we picked that we're selling monthly. And this one here as well. This is some of the older inventory that we've had. Actually, this is some of the newer inventory that we've got, or the better selling inventory that we've had. Shows the numbers there as far as sales and as far as numbers and the percentage of those sales. This here it pertains mostly to the older inventory that we've had from. A lot of it has to do with merchandise that we keep from previous year's manufacturer to try to sell through, offer a better deal for our customers. Some of that merchandise we've had for a number of years. Even though we hold that inventory over, that merchandise over, we're going to have to find ways and implement ways to try to better sell through that inventory, not hold on to it for as long as we have. This right here kind of shows you seasonally what we do as far as sales. So you can see in October, when we're still a little bit busier and the weather's good, we've got some tournaments in October as well. We do sell quite a bit have quite a few sales. It does drop off in November, December, January, and February for the winter months. And you can see there how it trends up in March, April, and through the spring and summer months as far as sales and the amount of sales that we're doing. Let's see. These are our better selling items that we have. And once again, it's not all of them. It's just a sample of some of our better selling items. And the percentages sold and what we are selling through during the time frame that we selected. In the identify and improvement stage, what we've done is, based on our current inventory levels when we were mapping this, the 9 items that we picked, and the amount of inventory that we carry for those 9 items was a little over $16,000. It's an excessive amount. We've kept that amount to try to offer our customers, when they walk in, as much available product on hand for them. But But what we're finding out is since we can get a lot of that merchandise in 5 business days, 6 business days, possibly we might not need to carry that amount of inventory that we're carrying. If we adjust the levels to warrant that or to show that, potentially just on those items right there, by not carrying as much of the inventory on hand, we could potentially save as much as $10,000 just on those items right there. So if you look at our inventory as a whole, and this is a several year process, we've carried anywhere from, I believe, when we started in 2000, $60,000 to $65,000 worth of inventory. We've also carried as much as $100,000 in inventory. If we can adjust those numbers based on not carrying as much of it on hand, but ordering when we need to, potentially. And once again, this is something that we're still working on and possibly trying to implement. If we order more when needed and not carry as much, we could potentially, over the entirety of our inventory, have savings of $50,000 to $60,000 as a whole. As far as our steps to implement the improvements, one of the things we're going to have to do is a lot of our older inventory, we're going to have some sales on those to try to produce some revenue on those, identify which ones they are, try to go ahead and get those out the door. So it's going to be an ongoing thing as well. To validate the improvements, we're going to have to start tracking it better. That way we can see if the improvements are working on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on a yearly basis. As far as validating our controls, if it's something that we continue to try to do and improve the process, it's going to be something that's going to be a learning process and something that we'll continue to work on. Finalized savings, we're not going to know that right away because it's something that we're going to have to continue to work on, continue to adjust and continue to try to improve on.
So we have another inventory project, and this one's been very interesting because a lot of moving parts in this inventory, but Justin has done a wonderful job of trying to get us to this point of improving the inventory control of what is the utility billing inventory as a whole. So with that, I'll turn it over to Justin, and Justin can talk about his project. So, thank you, Justin.
I'm Justin Cripps, mirror technician, part of utility billing. We experienced last year inventory problem. Wrong way. And inventory problem. Our physical inventory did not match what our in-code inventory said we had in the O2 inventory. You can see here on the series plot showing the numbers of adjustments made throughout the year. And this is also another series plot showing number adjustment plus costs of the inventory made. And you can see on June we had a major spike in inventory adjustment and also the costs there. We, as a department, last year we currently noticed performance is we had a loss of $11,799 in inventory costs. This is our process map, which involved Shannon Flowers, our purchasing agent, You can see there's several steps in the process of ordering and dispersing the items. This is our fishbone chart. We sat down as a group and went over what could possibly be the problems of our inventory. We noticed the lack of inventory control was one of the problems. Process of checking in and out our inventory, and the lack of training with the software that we have. The inventory control, we had mislabeled items, items in the wrong place, items spread out through the warehouse. Keeping track, we had high inventory stock in our trucks, stock items that haven't been entered in code that's already been stocked on the shelf, so it was causing confusion when we did inventory count. And keeping track of items when we're taking out, writing down the wrong name for it or the wrong item number. The lack of training, we didn't, as technicians, we didn't have access to the in-code inventory list, so we couldn't check it ourselves. We didn't have a sheet with the correct item numbers and names. We improved our, you can actually see right here, we had supplies mixed in with our meters. We improved it by, Shannon removed his supplies out of there, and we moved all our meters to one side of the shop, so we have easier access to it. We labeled all the shelves, so it's easy to identify with the item numbers. We have less stock items in our vehicles. We created a holding area for items that came in that haven't been entered into encode right away, so we don't get them confused when we need to do an inventory check. And we created a spreadsheet with the items numbers from encode plus the actual order number that Shannon used to order the items. We now have access to the inventory on encode, and we created a part sheet number, so when we take an item out, we can write it down and turn it in with the correct information so it can be dispersed correctly. And our next step is to validate our improvements and implement our controls.
Okay, so now we have Rebecca. And Rebecca's been working very diligently on top of not only this project, but all the other projects that I've been having her to actually get in participate in. I think I've drove her crazy with asking her for all these different items to get accomplished. You know, this project, the other projects that she's working on, which we'll actually see a bigger presentation at council here in the next following weeks. But she's been an integral part of that, asks a lot of questions, and has brought a lot of knowledge to the table as well, coming from San Antonio, seeing how other organizations do it, and has been doing a lot of research on how other organizations also trying to benchmark as much as possible. So I'll let Rebecca talk about her project and go from there.
All right, so I get the fun topic of platting. I don't expect any of y'all to even know what a plat is. So a plat is the subdivision of land. It's the legal document that says how the lots are laid out, and it's necessary if you're gonna buy or sell property. So it's required by the state. We do have some exemptions to it, but it is a highly technical and legal document, and it gets recorded at the courthouse. So we looked at how can we make this process faster? We're legally bound by the state to a 30-day process, and you'll see in the slides exactly how are we doing on that. So we're at 51 days, 51.7 days. So that's not good. That's 21 days out of cycle. And when we looked further, we looked at the cost of it. Those 21 days, we have 5 different reviewers, different salaries. We averaged them, came up with the price for how much is this costing us, these 21 extra days. And it's approximately $15,000 is the savings that we could have. So there's a lot of opportunity there. 75% of our plats aren't reviewed within those 30 days. And our goal is to bring that down to 100% are reviewed within the 30 days. So that's 0% defect. This is our current process map. And it's quite confusing to even staff. And I'll go over some of the issues that are in that process that are causing problems. So my champion team included Drew, Kyle, Stuart, myself, Dorothy at the front, talking about what is the process, what are all the issues that we have in the process that we can make better. And there were some common themes. Forgot to mention Guillermo was helping us through it too. The Pareto chart lays out all these different X factors that we came up with for why are we having the defect. And it's kind of spread out, but there are some common themes. Number one, our code is bad. There's a lot of interpretation, and there's a lot of circular movement for people to come up with answers for what are we supposed to do, because it's not clear. We also have failure of a checklist. If we had a checklist, everybody's on the same page, everybody knows what's expected. I can say, well, you failed on the checklist, here you go to the customer, but we don't have that. We have various different things for people to check on. There's also a lack of training for staff as well as our customer, who are engineers and surveyors. So this again is how we analyzed all our X factors. We looked at the top 11, which gets us to about half of those issues. And again, they're repetitive. It's the code, it's the interpretation, it's our checklist. It's having all the information up front. So when we start out with our process, we bring it in, we get the application, we need to determine if it's complete or not, and that's a whole nother issue in itself. Because oftentimes things are sitting on a desk. It can take a week from an application being turned in to landing on my desk for review. And in that time, it should have been routed for review. We've already lost 7 days. And we then decide, is it a major or minor plat? Major minor plat makes a big difference between how many reviewers need to review it. It can be a minor plat is simple. I review it, we move on. A major plat means we need to get a bunch of other people involved. And then those other people, of course, they're busy people too. So now we're looking at another week loss. So now we're already at 14 days. So we waste time too in plat review, waiting on the comments to come back. Then we decide if it's approved or not. And do we need Mylars? Wait, I skipped one. So we spend a lot of time in this circular motion with our customer, with our comments. Sometimes comments aren't caught on the first review. It comes back. And that's where we get a lot of time wasted. Us waiting on applicants to resubmit and us giving comments back to them and them maybe not even understanding the comments that they're given and they don't ask. So we need to better define what we expect in our timeline. Right now, also, we're getting our payment at the end. Typically, an application starts with a payment. Our application process right now ends with a payment. And so sometimes we have plats that have already been recorded, completed, shelved, and we haven't been paid for the work. And then sometimes they decide to drop the file, and we did all this work, and we were never paid. So we need to get the payment up front, and that way we don't lose it. And then we also allow the customer to record the plat, which means the plat walks out the door, maybe it doesn't come back. And we need to have those for city records, that we keep those. So there's a lot of opportunity for improvement within the platting process. I did look at other cities, Bernie, Fredericksburg, Lubbock, San Angelo, and San Marcos. And the key takeaways from those other cities is that we're all bound by the state rules. And the state rules in themselves are very confusing. Some cities are better at explaining what the process is, and other cities still refer back to the state. And the state is constantly changing every 2 years. for what those requirements are. So there is a current bill in the House right now to make the process slightly easier by removing a requirement for public hearing. So that'll be interesting if that gets passed. It'll make my work easier. And then there's also no standards for what must be included in a plat. The state is silent on that. And every city has different requirements because it depends on your development code. Are you gonna require stormwater analysis, a tree analysis, what roads are required, what kind of utilities are required? And that is not well defined in our code, and it's not defined by the state. So those are questions that we need to answer ourselves. And we are in the process with our code review committee of looking at our subdivision ordinance. So it's a great opportunity to follow up on Kerrville 2050, to include those changes and to streamline our process and better define it so that our city can grow and can subdivide. If you look, one of our X's was that land entitlements are confusing. I don't know how many of you all own property in Kerrville, but there are a lot of properties that are made up of lots. So if you have multiple lots and slivers of lots, or your property is not well defined, it makes development very difficult. And then finding that chain of so-and-so traded this land with so-and-so, it's very difficult. We ran into that issue with HEB trying to rebuild their new store, that it's like 30 lots and like 50 transactions, and just trying to follow the chain and now getting a clear picture of what that looks like. So Kerrville has a lot of opportunity. Our next steps, we're still in the process, and we know what the issues are, we know what some of the solutions are, but we need to actually formalize that, put it into the process, implement those controls, and create that process map. And then we're gonna also digitize it too. So we're no longer just going off of emails and people walking in the door. We're gonna actually put it into our online system.
So the next project we have is Davey. I had to twist Davey's arm. As you can see, this is like the first time I ever seen Davey without a hat, and not wearing a polo shirt. He's always wearing a polo shirt. But either way, Davey's done good work on this. There's some minor challenges on this one, but I think working with Laura and the rest of the staff, we've been able to find a potential good solution for us as we move forward on this particular project. So I'll let Davey talk about the rest of it. So.
Hello, everyone. My name is Davey Michelson, and I do work for the IT department. And I have chosen for my Greenbelt project reduce the hours worked on updating public computers. During the define phase, we outlined the hours spent on updating the computers. The library has, I believe, 33 computers. This includes the general public area, history center, child and teen computers that essentially now we have to physically go to the library, sit at each computer and update it. So there's definitely room for improvement. Here in the graph, you can see from the data that we pulled, the average to complete this is 6.6 hours. Sometimes it's even more than that, you know, going up to 12 hours, depending on how long of a gap we have waited and, you know, how many updates there are. So the chart just kind of shows, the tickets that we had and how many hours it took each time that we did each session there. Okay, so our problem statement is an area of concern in IT is that we are experiencing a problem with time it takes to deploy the updates to public access computers. The area of the problem is in the library. The problem started to occur when the library implemented public access computers. The current time period that it takes the staff to perform these updates is approximately 6 to 8 hours, and we do this on average every 6 months. The effect this problem is having on the IT department is time spent on creating images, running updates for Windows and third-party software installed on the computer. Likelihood of a security risk greatly increased due to this inefficiency. Here's the process map. So the process map essentially is we'll put it on our schedule that we want to go over to the library and what the heck? And so then we'll get with Laura and say, is this time acceptable? We'll go over there, we'll run the updates and finish the job. The fishbone diagram, when we all got together, it was my champion, Charlie Torque, Jared Jones, Laura, and Guillermo were all part of this. And during this part, we definitely wanted to see what direction we wanted to go. Did we want to buy new servers? Did we want to try automated software for these updates? And everything that we came up with that day was pretty pricey. It was between $60,000 and $80,000, which was way out of the league there. So we needed to reel that back a bit to fit budget. So if we did implement an automated update system, we could eliminate these first 4 steps. Essentially what would happen, we'd pick a day, we'd pick a time, 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., update these computers during this time. It's off hours, no one's affected. Come into work next day, you got to, update a computer. Let's skip that one. So adopting this new software will allow IT to deploy software updates automatically, schedule updates in a timely manner, and push out any emergency updates as they were needed. The most viable solution that we have come across so far is called Deep Freeze. Deep Freeze is a software that's essentially like a state capture kind of software. You can't make any changes to the software while it's in the frozen state. If you do make any changes once it's logged out of or rebooted, it goes back to the way it was that morning. So with this one, and we obviously are already using Deep Freeze, we just had the basic tier and we wanted to move up to a higher tier. So with the premium version of Deep Freeze, we would be able to utilize a mobile app that would allow us to see what's going on, push out automatic software updates to third party. And third party, when I say third party software, I'm meaning like Adobe, Java, stuff like that that's outside of what Windows would update. Create a usage stat report that would probably come in handy for Laura to keep records of. A cloud sync, there's threat protection software, and you could use it as a browser and desktop lockdown. You could create whitelist or blacklists. No one can go to these sites, or no one, or everybody can go to these sites, depending on which way you wanted to go with that. And the good thing about that is it would currently use the server that we have in place without having to update that. So the next steps would be evaluate funding, make sure it's feasible that we could do this, implement the improvements, and implement the controls.
So our next is no stranger to presenting projects, is Brandon. This is actually Brandon's second project. He's already getting ready to start his third project. We haven't quite talked through it all yet, but this is his second project, and I thought it was really good. Great thing, once you get going in Lean Six Sigma, those second, third, fourth, and fifth projects are a lot easier, and so you move through very quickly, and you're not spending that much time, even with me, doing one-on-one mentoring. It's more, hey, I have a question, and then you move on. But I think Brandon and even Danielle, which you'll see here in a minute, have done a wonderful job of continuing to complete some projects. So, Brandon?
Thanks, sir. All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How y'all doing? I'm Brendan Kelly with the City of Kerrville Street Department, the Assistant Manager. Today I'm going to be going over and talking to you about a street sweeping efficiency project. We're going to be looking at how we street sweep now and how we can better make it more efficient. Right now, the way we're doing, or the way we were doing it, is was a little less efficient for us. So first, we're gonna go over the define phase. And here with the define phase is when we have to ask, understand the problems, we're having. Ask, what is the problem? Where's the issue? And try to understand it, how to fix it. So creating and improving a street department street sweeping program. This problem occurs within all 6 districts of the city. Our street sweeper is a major asset to the city's beautification, and a large number of phone calls and emails come in each month from citizens wanting their roads swept, especially after the amount of rain we've gotten this past couple of weeks. It brings the gravel and debris, and so the street sweeping helps protect the water resources, prevents drainage issues, and removes any pollutants from the damage from the health and well-being of the community. So we use our project summary worksheet here. This helps us guide the project into the right direction. It helps us ask the right questions to ourselves. What is the actual problem? Not having the consistent street sweeping through all 6 districts. Where is the problem occurring, which is citywide within the 6 districts, and the time frame this problem has been occurring. It's been within at least the last 9 years. It's been occurring for us. And who's the customers that are affected are obviously the citizens. So in this summary report, this is the miles that the street sweeper is traveling and street sweeping. I know there's a difference between there, and we'll get more into detail about that here in a minute. But the miles that the street sweeper is traveling, that's a combination of everything. Now, the street sweeping miles are when that gutter broom is on the ground, that pickup head is on the ground. That's what we're trying to hit there. We can drive all over, but what matters to us is how much is actually being picked up in the streets. So right now we travel 43.5 miles in our average sweep a day. So with this eye chart, this allows us to see the street sweeping. And so we're averaging 4.8 miles of street sweeping each time we go out and sweep right now. So within that 43 miles, all we're doing is the 4.89 miles of actual picking up, the debris and everything. So, and you'll see the spike up there. Now that inconsistency is gonna happen. When we go and we sweep around Circle and Josephine, Ruth, and all those, they have all those trees in the right-of-way. They get much more leaves and debris. People may have more gravel in their driveway that got washed out. So we're having to spend a little bit more time there. It's causing us to spend. Now, when we go out to Comanche Trace, our mile, that's where that spike in a mileage is going to go, because they don't have any trees in their right-of-way. They have nice driveways and stuff like that. So we can run that street sweeper through there very quickly. We're not having to back up, go over it again, turn around, go around the block again, and keep going on that same street. Now, this is a summary report with the street sweeping miles, and this is just showing how we have the 4.8. It's just another tool we used, another chart to just to make sure that the 4.89 miles is what we're in. And then the median is the 4.55. And this data is just everything that we've collected. This includes the man hours, the machine cost, and the material costs, and we combine that to just come up with the street sweeping. Like I said, we don't want to focus too much on the miles that we're traveling. We just want to focus on the street sweeping part. And so this shows that our average cost for each mile swept is $99.17. So we're trying to get that down to $81 is our target there. So a project statement, this is as a department, we are experiencing a problem with inconsistent street sweeping. The area where this problem is occurring is throughout Kerrville. The problem has existed for at least 9 years. The current performance is 4.89 miles, and the expected performance is 5.5 miles. So the effect this problem is having on our department is the streets remain unswept. We'll go to a neighborhood, and right now we're just working off the work order. So we'll go over to maybe to 5th Street, and we'll sweep 5th and 4th, and then maybe the guy on 3rd's like, man, that's great you did that, but you didn't get my street, can you come back? Well, we're working on work order, so we're over here, and then we're over on Circle Street. Well, then maybe we got to go out to River Hills to Fairway, so we're just all over the place. So that travel time is creating waste. That's where we're at. So, and the total cost of the street sweeping since January 1st of 2018 to September 14th of 2018 is $9,698.36. So the project saving cost will be what we're shooting for is $1,260. So now we're in our measuring phase, and here it's all about, let's understand what's happening in the process. So we create our process map, and here with our process map, this is just when we go out to street sweeping, this is the order that we go in from start to finish. So one of the key factors here to take note of is the 50 minutes, the check, pre-trip inspection. We want to do a thorough pre-trip inspection, especially on our street sweepers, because they're $200,000 pieces of equipment. We want to make sure everything's working right and everything. But we felt that we can definitely cut that down, and we're going to get into that. So after that, we created our cause and effect diagram, which is our fishbone diagram. We got the whole department together. We all just put our heads together. Okay, what's causing the inefficiency of street sweeping? What's causing us to maybe not get to our full potential with street sweeping? We all sat down and we came up with different variations. Whether it be rainy weather, which just causes a street to be very, very bad. And so we're having to spend more time on that street or in that neighborhood, so we're not getting the mileage that we could be getting. Bad road conditions, on one of our street sweepers, it's a pickup head, it's a suction, it's a vacuum. So the street needs to be pretty flat. If not, it's gonna get that air hole, so it's not gonna use its full potential to pick up everything. You gotta keep going over and over it. Traffic, if we get on a high traffic street and we're trying to sweep it and we're like, okay, there's not a car coming. So now the guy goes, there's multiple cars parked on the side of the road and stuff. That's going to cause time that we're sitting there waiting, So after we create the fishbone diagram, we create our YX diagram, and then we create our Pareto chart. So we took the first 6 conditions that we felt were really something that we could address ourselves. So now we're in the analyze phase, and with the analyze phase, we look at the factors and the real reason for the low sweeping miles. So there's our X tracker, and this just helps us, grade those 6, helps us put them in order, which one's from most important to least. So the first one we address is the drive time to multiple work order locations. So now we're able to just designate everything to a district. We want to address it to a district where we're just, okay, today we're just going to go to District 1. Now we understand we're going to have our work orders and we're going to need to go address it. So I'll send a guy, hey, today we're going to do District 1, but for right now, run over to Fairway and River Hills, sweep it, and then get back over here on this. That still takes up time, but not as much. And this allows us to cover more in the district, more blocks, which is things we won't be missing. Another thing is just the amount of debris on the roadway. Sometimes we can't help that, but because of the storms and faulty drainage, trash, leaves, silt, and mud, it's just going to create a mess, and we have to spend more time on this street sweeping it. Not that we don't count those miles, but we're still just on this street. We're not expanding through the neighborhood. The one thing that we can't control is just the time of the year, especially like right now. We're in the rainy season. It's going to rain. We can't control that. So, but it still does cause problems for us. It still is an issue for maybe why we're not able to get to the neighborhood, the other roads in the neighborhood. And one of the other things we felt that was important is making sure that our operators were trained properly. making sure that they understand what a full hopper looks like, you know. One of our street sweepers, it's in the hopper's in the front, so you can just easily lift it up and you can see that you're full, or you can easily look behind you, it's not picking up anymore. With our Timco sweeper, you know, you got to more feel it, you know, get the feel for it and stuff. It does have the side doors, but this, we just felt it was it was really important so our operators, everybody knows what a full hopper looks like. That way we can stay out on the street more. Just to save from traveling to the city yard and dumping, just wasting that time, more travel time. So, and then here's an example of the layout of the neighborhoods like I was talking about earlier. This street's gonna be a little difficult. Now, the guy down the corner, he wants his street swept, you know, so we try to get the guy, you know, get them to move their vehicles and stuff like that, but sometimes they're not home. Or sometimes the vehicle's broke down, and now we gotta involve this, multiple different things, so. You know, so that's a whole different factor. That all takes time. So where he would have swept this already and been done an hour later, he's still trying to get vehicles moved and stuff. So sometimes it's best, you know, we just try to give them notice. You know, that's what we're trying to come up with now. Try to give a neighborhood notice as to when, hey, we're going to be sweeping in your neighborhood next Tuesday. And so if you could, don't have any vehicles or trailers or anything like that on the side of the roads. So. So now here's where I was talking about earlier in the process map, the 50 minutes. We were able to cut down, go down to 30 minutes in the pre-trip inspection. You know, we were figuring, well, maybe we don't need to check that every time. You know, maybe unless we just see the tire pressure is just ultimately low. We did check it Monday. By Friday, it's probably going to still be okay. You know, so we don't need to spend all the time checking this and that stuff. And then things we could do at the end of the day, blowing out the air filters and stuff instead of, you know, doing it right there in the morning. We'll just do it at the end of the day because we got to clean the street sweeper. We don't just go out and sweep and then put it up in the garage at the end of the day. No. We cannot do that with this type of equipment and how expensive this equipment is. It's things inside are going to rust and fall apart if you don't maintenance and clean it right and grease it and everything. So after looking at all the variations, you know, we implement our improvement phase. This is where we implement the changes and the way we sweep our streets. And this is just going to the district now. This is showing an example of now we're going to stay in this district. We're not gonna venture off over here today. We're just gonna stay here unless we have a major work order. Now we will contact that person that maybe called about some street, like, hey, we will be there on Friday. Is it a huge urgency? Sometimes it is. Sometimes they, you know, we want to please our citizens and stuff. Like, well, look, we are having a birthday today, and we like our street to be swept or stuff like that. Okay, we'll run over there real fast. We want to please them. You know, that's our customer service is our #1 priority. So we do want to do that, especially with Mother's Day coming up. So we definitely, you know, everybody wants their street swept and their grass mowed, and so they're mowing their grass, and then so we got to go behind them and sweep their streets after we already swept their streets. But that's okay. It's no problem. Like I said, customer service is our #1 deal. And so this is just, like I said, showing an example of the air filters. These were the 2 big priorities we were able to change. Like I said, the tire pressure, chances are your tires are going to be okay. If you checked it Monday, we're probably going to be all right. We don't need to constantly visit that every day. That's creating time. There's, you know, there's multiple tires on these things. So anyway, and then the air filters. That's something it's like, well, we'll do that at the end of the day. We're already cleaning it. Blow out all the air filters at the end of the day because it is a dusty piece of equipment and stuff, even with the water system on. So, and then this was just another deal where we showed each person that operates the street sweeper. This is what a full load looks like. This is what it should feel like, the weight of the vehicle. And so this was with the improvements of the, and all the, going to the district and all the other improvements that we made. You can see here, now we're at the with the improvement, we're at 5.76 miles swept. We were at the 4.89. Now we're at the 5.76, just with those improvements. And this is just from January of 2019 to May of 2019. So, let's see, I lost my place on my field. So now we have our control phase. With our control phase, this is where we're just able to control all those improvements that we had and just fix the new improvements with the process, how we go about doing everything now. And so with that, we use our new work procedure and work instructions. This will help measure the quality and efficiency of the street sweeping. The work procedure can ensure constant performance of the beautification. The work instruction gives the employee specific guidelines to follow in order to operate the street sweepers. You know, you need to get a new employee or something, he gets in the street sweeper, he's like, man, there's a lot of buttons and switches in here. So we just created a work instruction, push this button before you do that and everything. So it just helps them, you can't fail. Here's the pictures and everything. Just follow it. So this is the impact of the street sweeping improvements. So right now, before that one side, after that one side. So now from January of 2019 to May of 2019, our average has gone up to 6.2 miles and bringing our total savings to $1,442 of soft dollars. So when you look at the soft dollars, you may ask, well, where's the hard dollars and stuff? There's not really any hard dollars we can save here in this process, because the material costs, all we're really buying, we buy the fuel and we buy the bristles for the gutter brooms and stuff. But in order to save on that, you don't use the bristles. Well, then we're not street sweeping, so we have to keep street sweeping, so we can't do that. The only thing we can do, though, is we can make those bristles last longer. On the street sweepers, there is an adjustment pin that so you don't push down, because as they wear, you pull that pin, you lower it, okay? And so you want to remember when you change the bristles to put that pin back to the front, so then you're not pushing down on those bristles so hard, and you'll lose a broom in no time. The wear and tear on it will be extreme. So obviously, our goal was the 5, so we were already at 6.2 miles, and then the savings, well, we've already passed that $1,200, so it's great. So from January to May, from January to March is when we're just out there every day, we're street sweeping and stuff. But from March to September, we do have our street sweeping program. We use both of our street sweepers in our street sweeping program. So the amount of street sweeping that gets done will go down because, we're using it for milling. So when we do an overlay street, we mill the top of the asphalt. When we mill the edges, we use our Elgin street sweeper to pick up the big heavy loads, and then to get the fines, we use our Timco. Now, while we're milling, we have the guys sweeping the neighborhood around, which we'll document that still, but it won't be at the 8-hour magnitude like you see here. So things will slow down with that, but then we pick right back up once we complete the paving program that year. So.
We're at our last project. Danielle, she's actually on her 3rd project already, but this is her 2nd project that she's been able to complete at the library. She did a wonderful job here. I think this was a little bit different from the last one in the sense it was more impactful to the individuals actually working in that particular process on a day in and day out basis. So with that, I'll let Danielle actually talk about her project.
Good morning. Okay, so today my project that we're going to talk about is the interlibrary loan process. And for those of you who may not be familiar with it, the interlibrary loan process helps us in the library a great deal because it means we don't have to purchase everything that a patron may want. We can borrow it from another library, excuse me, at little or no cost to us. So wrong way. Get into Brandon's project. So the first thing we needed to do is look at the define phase. That's just kind of the beginning part of every Lean Six project. So I kind of assembled my team. I do have an interlibrary loan specialist. That's primarily what she does. That's Jennifer. But we also kind of wanted to have somebody that could run backup on some of these projects. So Josh had hired in with us, so we started training him to do some of it. Here. So in that first slide, I was just kind of identifying the team members that I was going to use, and we kind of started some initial data gathering. So when we look at it, from the initial overview, the what was really the processing time. It was taking us just a little too long to get those materials into the hands of the patrons that had ordered them. It affected obviously the interlibrary loan person, but it also affected the circulation desk because they're usually the front line. They have to deal with the customers when they come in. Hey, where's my book? I put in the order 2 weeks ago. Where is it? So it affected staff and patrons, and it had been going on for a few years, at least as long as I've been at the library, which is going on 7. And part of it was when Jennifer came in and she took over interlibrary loan from the last person, it was a lot of the things that were just part of, oh, that's how we do it, and things needed to be tightened up. So the first thing that we did was we took a look at how long the process was taking with lead time. And lead time is just your wait time in between workstations. And at this point, it was taking 92 hours from the time that the book or material got there to when it was actually getting in the hands of the patron. So there's a few steps in that process that you have to go through, but a lot of time was being wasted in those wait stations. Because when you look at it without lead time, the actual steps in the process was only taking 6 minutes. So there's, you got that huge amount of time where stuff is just sitting waiting to be processed. So we did some rough calculations with salaries involved, and we took last year's amount of books that we had processed and materials. We looked at how many were falling outside of our goal, which we had set at basically around 48 hours. Our savings came to $19,567 potential soft savings. So it's just a time savings element. So with our problem statement, we kind of just reiterate that information, putting it in Six Sigma language and statistical language. It represented basically an 82% defect rate in our process. So with that, we had a lot of room for improvement. So the measure phase. The measure phase, you kind of look at everything. What could possibly be going on that's causing these issues with the process? So the first thing we did was we gathered cycle times. It's a timed project in and of itself. That's the nature of it. So we gathered cycle times to see how much time was actually being spent. So a lot of data in Excel spreadsheets. And then we ran a capability analysis to see where that process ranked. As a Six Sigma level, where you're looking to be at least at a 3, we were running at a minus 0.31. So we weren't even at a 1 with this process. So our process basically was not capable of meeting the demands that we had set. Since our Sigma level was that low, generally you look to make a 75% improvement. The one good thing about having a Sigma level that low is you can usually do a 90% improvement fairly easily. So we decided to go for the stretch goal and do a 90% improvement. As you've seen in my colleagues' presentations, the first thing you always do is you kind of just map every step of the process. What happens here, what happens here, what happens here, what happens here. So we did that. And then we did our brainstorming exercise to kind of look, and we involved the entire staff in this because really everybody touches this process at one point or another. And the Pareto chart ranks the top issues. So with ours, we looked at in-depth scheduling, training, distractions or interruptions in the process, having an organized workspace, and just standardizing the process so the same process was done the same way every time. So our standard work combination chart, this is where we actually literally sit there with a stopwatch and we time each part of that process to see if the process in and of itself can meet those parameters. And what we found was really the steps in the process when she took that lead time out, we were doing okay. We could meet our production goals. We just had other issues. So our spaghetti diagram, which maps the actual physical steps, it really isn't quite as bad as it looks. There's a couple places where Jen had to go to be able to retrieve her paperwork and shelve the material so the patron could pick it up. But most of it's right in that general area. There was a few things that was more, not so much walking waste, but just reaching and things not being in a reasonable area to get to quickly. So the waste analysis looks at the 7 wastes in depth and you rank them. And you can see in our waste analysis worksheet that really where we were having problems was in that weighting, but also in some of the motion. And our X tracker just looked at that a little bit more in depth. We identified those key factors and looked at those a little further. So we tracked the interruptions. There was about 7 interruptions in a 2-hour time frame when Jennifer tracked it. Annoying, but not really significant. We did look at scheduling. All my staff does multiple things during their day. Interlibrary loan is just one of Jennifer's duties. We have a courier that picks up and drops off materials for us. And one of the problems that we were having was sometimes the stuff, wouldn't be ready to go out with the courier, or sometimes Jennifer wasn't at her desk to process the stuff when the courier dropped it off. So we looked at the scheduling. We did a brief survey of staff to see how comfortable they were with different aspects of the process. And everyone was comfortable with different things, but Jennifer was really the only one who could just step in and do all the steps of the process without a problem. The last thing we looked at is our workspace. There's motion involved in that waste. A lot of it was motion around that workspace. When we did our 5S audit, which really looks at how organized your workspace is, we only got a 44 on it. So there was things that we can make better in that. So cycle times, waste analysis, the unorganized workplace, that just showed where we needed to improve. And so we're on to the improve phase, which really is my favorite part of the process. You get to determine your optimal solution. So we looked at everything and we said, well, we need all the staff to at least have a really good familiarity with all the steps. That way anybody can kind of step in and do this process if Jennifer's tied up with something else or Josh is over at the History Center. We reorganized the workspace and standardized procedures. And then we wanted to optimize that staff scheduling so that the things that needed to go to the courier picks up Monday, Wednesday, Friday, were ready to go, and Jen was available to process the incoming material for our patrons. So we started doing some training sessions. We have staff meetings generally every Friday morning. So we figured this was a good time. If we didn't have a whole lot of other things we could talk about, we could do little snippet training sessions, not so much that people got overwhelmed, but just basic things that any staff member might need to know if a patron comes in and says, well, I ordered it, I know it's in process, but where is it in process? Then we adjusted the scheduling to coordinate with the courier pickups. And really that meant a lot of having Jennifer maybe doing her circulation desk time in the morning so that she was available in the afternoon, get that stuff ready to be ready to go out to the courier the next day. And then we reorganized the workspace, and we brought Guillermo over when we were doing this. One of the things, you get so used to your workspace being your workspace that you don't really see how you can change it. And a lot of times bringing in Guillermo and having an objective set of eyes kind of look and say, okay, how can we arrange this a little bit better so it's a little bit more helpful for us? So the first thing we did was we reorganized our desks. Our desks used to be straight across, and we reorganized it so it was more of a U shape. And I really liked it so much that I did my side of the desk space that well too, because it's a lot easier when you don't have to like stand up every time you want to get your stapler. And then we reorganized the bins for the courier. These bins, the staff uses them to return things, so that this is a bin that's stuff that's ready to be returned. This is a bin the courier knows right there, that's his bin. If he comes in and there's nobody in that space, he knows what bin he needs to pick up. He knows where he needs to put the new bin. We also have one patron who uses interlibrary loan a lot. So she has her own bin. And it's right there. We know where her things are. And then we also have book clubs. We have a History Center book club, and we have a regular library book club. And those books, they require a little bit different process because they're not naturally just assigned to one patron. They work through the system. So we have the bottom shelf for those. That way, staff, somebody comes in and says, oh, I don't normally come to book club, but I really want to do this book club. I really like this book. They know exactly where those things are. They can go, they can grab them. They're already cataloged. They're ready to go. And the binders. The binders is one of those little things that you do that you don't think is going to make that big of a difference, but made a huge difference. We used to keep everything in your typical file folders. Problem with file folders is stuff always ends up in the wrong file folder. You go to put it in the one in there and it ends up in the one behind it. The binders, we were able to put them in the file folder drawer that way, but they're all facing up. So when staff needs to look at something, all the binders, this is an active request. This is a completed request. This is stuff that we've lent out. This is stuff that we have borrowed. And it's clearly labeled, and they're all different colors, so you can at least say, it's in the purple binder. Get the purple binder, it'll be in the purple binder. So once you do all the improvements, we wanted to see if it really did make any difference in our day-to-day work life. So we did new cycle times to see how, if productivity increased, if efficiency increased at all. So our cycle time with lead time, all that waiting in between, actually went from 92 hours down to 11 hours. And some of that, it's kind of an abnormal distribution in there, and some of that is because there are times where Jennifer's able to jump right on it the minute it comes in. It's all cataloged, it's all processed, it's all ready to go. And then there's other times when we have other things going on at the library where there's a little bit of time before she can get to it. Subtracting lead time, it was at 6.7 minutes. Those little improvements we made in that desk area without having all that extra motion reduced it back down to 3.84 minutes, which doesn't seem huge, but it really is if you add up all those minutes together during the week. So then we redid our capability analysis to see what our sigma level was. So our sigma level, we got that 90% improvement, and so the sigma level is now at a 6. So if we continue to work the process effectively, we will save at least that $19,000. And that's it's a variable soft dollar savings just because we don't know how much will go out for interlibrary loan this year. So the control phase, just to keep all those improvements in place, we did the work instructant binders. That way anybody on staff, if they've never done interlibrary loan before, they can grab the binder. They can go through step by step how to borrow the materials, how to return the materials, and it helps a lot. We like to use a lot of the screenshots and a lot of the pictures in there because it really helps people know what they're looking at when they're looking at the electronic system. And then, as I went through before, the binders and the workspace, that helps keeps everything very organized. Everything is labeled, so everything has a place where it belongs. And psychologically, that really does help tremendously. You just naturally put it back where it belongs, so you're not searching through things, looking for things. And so our 5S audit, when we redid it, it shows an improved score. We're up to an 84. We still have a couple little things that we're looking at fine-tuning. The more you use the process, you kind of like, oh, you know what? This would work a little bit over here. This would look a little bit better over here. So our next steps is we've been working this process for the last couple months. We've had 0 defects in the process. It's been going very well. We're going to continue with our ongoing training sessions for staff so more people feel comfortable within that process. It's a little different process than the normal check-in, check-out at the circulation desk. We're going to track our cycle times for the next year, and we have begun to start on our next project, which we're looking at the large print collection in our library and the space constraints that we have in there. How can we expand that section with keeping it within the same space? Any questions? Awesome.
So all your requests, are they in like a form, one of those binders?
Yes, yes. It actually gets processed electronically with the other libraries, but there is an actual piece of paperwork that allows us to know who filled that request and has a barcode on it so we can scan it and all that.
How does a citizen make a request?
The citizen, they can do it a couple different ways. They can either come in, we have a paper form at the reference desk. If somebody wants to come in and they're like, oh, I really want this next book in the Patterson series and you guys don't have it, we can do it that way. They can also, through the new ILS system, the new circulation system that we have, Apollo, you can log into your account that way and you can actually do an interlibrary request through that as well.
So you already have like an account, nothing is.
Yeah, we do. Just not everybody wants to do it. Some people like paper. Anything else?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, as you've seen, every project is a little bit different. A lot of the tools are the same that we use because it's a methodology, right? That's what Lean Six Sigma is it's a rigorous, detailed methodology, and we use the same tools for different reasons, but each one of these tools gives us different insight as to what is the potential opportunities to improve in a particular project, and ultimately, the improvements is where you see different solutions. You know, sometimes there are very low-tech solutions, like the one project we saw with Mary, that's something very low-tech. It's just a little eventually probably be a stamp. But that in itself is something that can improve a process. Or it's a high-tech solution that you can have as well. So every project is different. Every solution is different. And so the most important thing is that every individual that has come through Greenbelt training has learned a new methodology, a new way of thinking about how to approach a problem, and then going about how to solve that problem. So